June 25th, 1950. Communist-backed North Korea invades NATO-backed South Korea in what would become known as the first armed conflict of the Cold War. Often referred to as the Forgotten War, the men who fought and in many cases died for the sovereignty of South Korea will never be forgotten. Derek Kinne, serving in the 1st Battalion of the Royal Northumberland Fusiliers, was captured and held as a P.O.W. for 2 years and 4 months. Resisting every method his captors employed to break his spirit, Derek Kinne was repeatedly beaten and tortured for his resistance, yet survived his imprisonment to become known as the man North Korea couldn't break. Escaping his prison twice and fighting the enemy to the best of his abilities, Derek Kinne was awarded the British George Cross, the equivalent to our Medal of Honor, for his bravery in the face of his captors and for his devotion to duty while imprisoned.
So, how did you first hear about Korea?
My brother was killed in Korea, and that's how I first knew about Korea. I was in North Africa, serving in the Cameron Highlanders, and I was due to be discharged from the army. And the officer said, "You're very lucky, Kinne. You've been discharged because there's a blow-up coming up in Korea." And that was the very first time I heard of Korea. And the next time, well, of course, my brother was killed there. And when we were boys, we made a sort of a pact, as boys do, that if one was killed, we didn't say killed, if one was missing, the other one would go and search for him. And it so happened that my brother was killed, and I went to Korea.
So, when was the first time that you fired your rifle in combat?
In anger. The first time I fired my rifle in anger and killed somebody was the 13th of April. And we were sent out on a patrol to look for prisoners. We run into a bunch of Chinese defending this little hill. And we got into a small arms fire, and then I was told we were going up the hill, and I was told to go up one section, and the other guy said section's that section. I saw a coal trench up there, so I was rather smart. I jumped in the coal trench and went up the coal trench, which was very stupid. The officer told me not to go there, to go on the level ground. And me, thinking we'll get level ground, I'm vulnerable to anything. But if I'd have been in the slit trench, it covered me somewhat. But that would be where the Chinese would have put their damn landmines. So I was stupid in doing that, but because I was thinking of otherwise. But that's it. So I'm crawling up this trench, and I get up to the top, and I've got a hand grenade in my hand, and my rifle. It's rather uncomfortable when I'm crawling. And then I just happened to look up, and a Chinaman looked up the same time as I did. So I just threw the hand grenade, and I counted 4, because the 4-second fuse didn't go off. And then I looked up, and as I looked up, he looked up, and I just squeezed the trigger, and I had my gun, a rifle, and I'd taken off the safety, and it was on cocked, half cocked. So all I had to do was just pull the trigger, and I killed him. And the thing was, with an hand grenade, it's got a pin in it. Well, if it's a very straight pin, so you bend the edges so it don't come out accidental and blow yourself up. And I forgot to pull on it hard and pull the pin out and throw the hand grenade. So I threw the hand grenade with the pin still in it. So the officer come around and told us where to pick up any weapons, anything of any importance, and I had to go over the Chinaman and the other guys were coming up and search him for anything, and I had to keep anything. I had to put it in a bag. I would pass it over to the Red Cross. And they said, pick up anything else around that's been discarded. So I said to the officer, I said, oh, I threw the hand grenade. I said, I forgot to pull the pin. Do you want that too? It took a couple of seconds for it to sink. And he said, you did what? I said, I threw a hand grenade. I forgot. You forgot to pull the pin? I said, yes. And he called me, oh, you stupid bastard, you forgot to pull the pin. So after that, everybody kept saying, oh, he forgot to pull the pin. And at night time, I'd hear somebody holler, oh, he forgot to pull the pin. He forgot to pull the pin. Daddy, he forgot to pull the pin. Going all around the pillow. So I never did, if it hadn't been for the continuing action of the Battle of the Imchin, they'd have been still singing that song, he forgot to pull the pin. So that was that. So that was the very first time I fired my rifle in anger. Little did I realize that less than a couple of weeks, I'd be going to hell for leather on the grenade, on the Bren gun, and killing him with the Bren gun. So that's the first time I forgot to pull it.
So at the Battle of the Imchin, what exactly were your responsibilities?
Well, I was an infantry soldier. I was a Bren gunner. And the battle lasted for 4 days, just fighting all the way from the hill that we was on, and we kept withdrawing until they got captured.
When the British were ordered to withdraw, how were you left behind and later captured?
Well, there was a tank had shut its half track, and they wanted cover and fire for the half track, so they could put give time for all the half track on. And I said to me, I was in India, happened to be running by with Brengan, you go in that paddy field and give this man cover, this tank cover and fire. And when the half track's put back on and the tank's leaving, jump on the half track and come out with the half track. That road, incidentally, further down, that the Chinese had infiltrated and had set up a roadblock, and you had to go through and traverse through that roadblock. So I went into the Curry was the number 2 on the bread, and I went into the paddy field, and I got a position where I could look both ways. I had a good view, and they were coming down the gully, and they were accumulating there, and they were rushing across the paddy field to get to the other side so they could get up the hill and fire on the troops coming through. Well, my job I wasn't told, but it was always where I had to stop them from coming through and going across. And so Curry and I rushed out there, and I got into just somewhere on the paddy field, and I stopped and made a nice opening where I could put the Bren gun so I could traverse it. And it's a light machine gun, so it's got very little, hardly any recoil. It's a beautiful weapon. Anyway, And I said to Kerry, this is the spot. So I took out the 2 magazines I had in this pouch and this pouch, and I put them down. I took his 2 or 3 he had. Anyhow, I had 9 magazines, and it amounted to each magazine had 29 rounds in it. It carried 30, but you only put 29 in because the tension on the spring, you don't want to put too much strain on the spring. So I had 9 magazines with 29 bullets in each one, and I fired every one. I set the blanket up. In my tunic, I had my hat, and it had the hassle on it, with that white hassle. And I didn't want to put it in the paddy field and dirty it. And I was putting the blanket against my chest, so I was going to bust the hassle. That's the other thing I was thinking of. So I took it out of my tunic and I put it on my head. That's where you put your hat. Not thinking that a red and white hassle in the middle of a paddy field would work out of place. And I'm firing away. And then this other tank comes down. There's all tanks, there's all kinds of stuff coming down on the highway going out. But this particular one, the guy stood up. He took a look at me and he's yelling, take that effing hat off or something, in French, because he was Belgian. And I'm telling him to get down in that turret. He's going to get his head blown off. And that, whatever the conversation, and then I thought, fuck him. And I went on back to killing him. And that was that.
So, after the Battle of the MGM, how were you captured and how did you feel about being captured?
Well, actually, I was captured in the Battle of the MGM. And we were withdrawing. And the tank took off, so there was not much point in me hanging around. The Bren was no good. I'd run out of ammunition. So I took off the gas regulator, dug it in the dirt, took off the barrel, put it in the dirt, covered it over, and smashed the rest of the gun down on a rock, making it inoperable. And then I took off for the road, jumped on the road, and running down the road. And I'm running on one side, I think, and then the other. And then I just get to one particular point, I just don't know where, and I looked and there's these 2 Ulster riflemen that are in the wadi, and the wadi was getting bigger in the wadi, and there were 3 Chinamen on a machine gun above them. And I stopped, and I stood in front of them, and I opened my legs like that, and I got the hand grenade, and I made damn sure I pulled that pin. And I went like that, and I let the pin go, and I went 1, 2, and I flung it like that over the 2 Ulster rifles. I hope it went over them. I'll never ever know. And to land in with the 3 Chinamen, and if it went where it was supposed to, there were 3 less Chinamen. If it didn't, there was 2 less Ulster rifles. But I like to think there were 3 Chinamen. And then I went to the other side of the tank, and then I came back, and by this time the wadi had moved up considerably. When I escaped the first time, I was recaptured, and at the same time the captain, Anthony Farrah Hockley, who incidentally, he's dead now, but he later became a general in the British Army. He was the adjutant of the Gloucester Regiment. He'd escaped, and he was with two other guys, and they were being kept in the cellar in a temple, and he had his shoes off, and he went to reconnoiter, and he left his shoes off. And when he got up in top, there was two Korean soldiers. They nabbed him. Well, he couldn't say, "Oh, I've got to go get my shoes," because the other two guys were down there. So he had to go with no shoes. So subsequently, his feet got very infected, get ripped and tore with the rocks. And so when it came to where I was, he was in a shocking state because I'd been recaptured. We'd both been recaptured, we were both pulled together. So you started carrying him, doggy fashion, on my back. That got too heavy and couldn't go very far. So then he started carrying him on my shoulders. And that's how it went till we got other guys, a couple of other guys came, and then we shared carrying him on our shoulders because he couldn't walk, he had no shoes and his feet were very blistered. And eventually, when we got to one of the waybys, the officer, Captain Hickey, had to operate on his foot with no anesthetic and everything, get the pus out, razor blades. Anyhow, his foot got better.
So when you got captured, they marched you to the camps. How was the march?
I was captured. They kept us in in an area for that night, and then the next day and the next night we were prepared to march north, but I decided I wanted to escape, and I informed the officer that I was going, and I went, and I escaped, and 3 days later I was captured again by, I think they were North Koreans that captured me. But I was turned over at the time the Chinese, and I was turned over to the Chinese.
Okay, so when you were first in the camp, what kind of were your impressions? How did they treat you when you first arrived?
Well, we've always were hungry, and a lot of men died of malnutrition and dysentery. It was very brutal. We reckon there were 600 on Boot Hill, and it was really sad.
So how did you guys celebrate holidays or anything at the camp? Did you guys celebrate or?
Well, sometimes they would say they'd have a feasting if it was some communist holiday, and we'd all have to march around and do things so we'd get extra food. But the Christmas, they had a half-assed effort, but very poor. It wasn't. Prison life is not something you want to write home about. It's pretty rough.
So when you were in camp, you said that you were they contained you into small wooden boxes.
Well, the ones that were reactionary, and I wasn't very cooperative with them, and they finally took me out of the regular camp, and I was confined in a wooden box. Well, there was rows of boxes, of wooden boxes, and anybody that was that they could handle, they put in these boxes. Well, I ended up 80 days in the box, and the only way it came to an end is I had a disagreement with one of the guards, and I throw some boiling food on him because he was being a horrible bastard. And so they took me out and beat the hell out of me. And then the guard commander came along with his grease gun and he started beating me with it. And it went off and he killed himself. Well, that really put the cat amongst the pigeons. And I had a dog's life for quite a while after that. And subsequently, I was 165 days in handcuffs, 81 days in the boxes, and the rest of the time I was put in solitary until they had the court-martial. And that was that.
So how did you really get the information that the war had
Well,
been
it
over?
all came piecemeal because of the talks, and it gradually. And then one day, we were all called in front of our respective huts. And I always remember the guys said through the tireless efforts of the CPV, the Korean People's Army, that they had brought the Americans to their knees, and they had now capitulated, and we all could go home. Well, and the thing was, we were never really prisoners. They were there protecting us from the Americans. And all the time I used to say, you don't have to protect me, I'll take my chances, I'll go. But they would never let me go. But then finally they let me go.
When they exchanged the prisoners,
Sorry?
When they exchanged the prisoners between the U.S. and the Koreans, how did you feel, and how was that experience?
It got you were so close because of the no man's land, and you'd go there, and then every day there would be truckloads of North Chinese and North Koreans coming this way, and there were 2 or 3 trucks of American prisoners going the other way. All the trucks going back to Panmunjom. And when you went through the no man's land, there's all these beautiful uniforms the Americans had given the Chinese and the Koreans to wear brand new, and they'd taken them off and they threw them in the damn threw them in the no man's land. And I thought, God, if they can throw that good clothing away, I sure should throw this shit that I've got. So I took all my clothes off and I threw all my clothes away. And I had in my pack, I had some marijuana that I picked up out the field, and I threw that. Oh my God! I threw the marijuana away. And so when I crossed the line, the only thing I had was my Red Cross bag hanging from my thing with toothpaste. And I went to the edge of the boat because I was very bad with double hernia that I'd got while I was at prison camp. And the Korean officer came up, put his hand up, wanted to help me out of the truck, help me down. And I wouldn't get into his arms, so I went to the other side of the truck and he followed me. And then I went back to the other, and on this little hill, there were these Americans watching. He was an officer too, and he saw what was happening, and he realized what I was doing. I didn't want him to take me. So there I was, going one end to the other and back again. And then that officer saw what was happening and figured I didn't want that guy to take me off. So he came running off the hill, and I don't think he was allowed to. Looking back at it now, that's when they were standing up there, and the Koreans were there, and he grabbed the blanket that the Korean had off his shoulder, and he held that up for me. And of course, I went into his arms,
So when you got out and you had been taken care of the hospital and everything, how did you find out that you were going to get the George Cross?
Well, I did. I was the first. I never ever thought about medals. Never ever. From day one, never thought about medals. And while I was in hospital, because once I came out, went into hospital for surgery for my hernias, and I was there. And the officer came in with a gurney, and they all laid out, and it was places I'd been. It was really incredible, their intelligence. Because he'd say, well, you were here. And I said, no. And after a while, I thought, oh yeah, you're right, I was there. So anyhow, he interrogated me, and before he left, he says, I don't want to put your hopes up, but I think there might be an MM or an MID in this for you. Well, MID is mentioned in dispatches. That's the lowest level. And MM was a military medal, which is pretty high up. So that's the very first time I heard about medals. Then the next time I was called up to Fenham Barracks in York, and there was a big pile of press people there, and I would have said, what's going on? Well, I didn't know, the officers knew, that the Gazette comes out, and the awards was going to be issued in the Gazette. And the Gazette there is at 6 o'clock in the evening in England, which is everybody in the Commonwealth had an opportunity to get this information. Everybody got it at once. And so at 6 o'clock, we went into this library, which was made, what did they call it? Press room. And the officers, one officer said to the other, he said, it says, he said, it's my privilege. And he turned to the other one and said, no, he says, it's your privilege. You served with him. So he turned and said, it is my privilege to inform you that you've been awarded the George Cross. And I said, oh God, I wish it had been the MM, because at that time military medal was the highest they'd have thought. He said, good God, man, do you know what you said? Yeah, yes, a medal. No, don't. You keep that down. So the press people, what's he saying? What's he saying? Oh, you don't want to know what he says. So that's where the first, because there are two medals in the British Army. The Victoria Cross, which was inaugurated by Queen Victoria for battle, for bravery on the field of battle. And in those days, that's where people fought and died. Civilians were involved. Then come the Second World War, it became relevant that civilians were being killed in a mass, in the bombings and strafings. So King George, who was the present Queen's father, brought out a medal, the George Cross. So it could be, the George Cross cannot be given to a man on the battlefield. He will get the Victoria Cross. And by the same token, off the battlefield, that's in contact with the enemy, it's the George Cross. So consequently, as I was in the battles, I was in a prison camp. It was not on the field of battle. I got the George Cross